Hi everyone, and welcome to today's video where we're going to be doing a perk tier list for the Asylum. This is coming out 2 months before the Slaughterhouse, so we know we're getting 2 more perks then, so just keep in mind once the Slaughterhouse comes out, we're going to check out the new perks then, and we're going to let you know exactly where they fit into all the tier lists that we're doing from here on forward. But for now, all these perks are going to be S tier for absolutely amazingly useful in the Asylum to god-awful, never bring this to the Asylum. And remember, this is just a tier list for the Asylum. It's not my general perk tier list. That will be linked in that video will be linked below in the comments, so you can actually check that one out if you want to know what the general best perks are in the game. But for now, we're going to dive right in and see which of these perks are the best for the Asylum. First up, we have... Oh, sorry, let me make sure I'm looking at the right stuff. First up, we have Crawler, plus 100 movement speed when knocked down. Okay, so for the Asylum, this can actually be a useful perk. Still not as useful as it's not D tier anymore. It's moved up to C tier. So it's not absolute trash. It's just typically trash for the Asylum. Because the only real safe area in the Asylum is a place where you can't reach someone in order to help heal them. So, unfortunately, there's no way to do that, with no way of being caught, like in other maps. Whereas in the Asylum, she's usually taking you to the very top of the map, which is the 3rd floor. You have to crawl really awkwardly, like down this one thing, down this one hall, down some stairs, down another hall, down the stairs to the 1st floor. Usually people are setting up medkits either right in front of that fireplace or in the basement. It's a long crawl, and unfortunately it's usually cluttered with minions. And usually that's also where Molly likes to, or Azazel, I guess you could say, likes to path, is right in that center area. So crawling away from it as fast as possible is a good thing, but again, you're probably boned by the time this really starts to happen and this perk kicks in. Can it be useful in the Asylum? Yes. Do you ever want to use it? Not really. After that, acceleration plus 20% movement speed for 20 seconds after being revived. I mean, it's D tier and C tier. Like, I really can't decide. Because 20 seconds worth of extra movement speed, where are you going to go? You're going to run around and try and find another rat, run around and try and get away from Azazel. Azazel's probably already on your butt again. You already know where the rats are. There are better perks for the Asylum than this one. I wouldn't say this is probably the best perk because you're probably somewhere away from Azazel by the time you're getting revived. So, it's worse than Crawler, actually. It's amazing that I have to say that, but it's true. Next up is long-sighted, all items highlighted at 50% greater distance. Again, long-sighted is once again relegated to D tier. It'll probably always be D tier, because in the Asylum, when you're trying to find rats, when you're trying to find food and stuff like that, it's usually a very short distance that you're looking. The only time it's really useful is when you're looking for stuff on the tables in the dining area. And even then, by the time you can see something there, you can already start to see something on the left-hand side of the map or the right-hand side of the map. It's not that extra far. The extra distance does not make it that useful. If they said you could see things at 50% further distance and through walls, absolutely this perk would suddenly become a much better perk. But as it is right now, it's still a D tier perk. After long-sighted, we have Quartermaster. Medkits are highlighted through walls. Now, in Farmhouse, this was an absolutely fantastic perk, but unfortunately, it falls down into, like, maybe... I'd probably say it's worse than Crawler in the Asylum. Mostly because when it comes to medkits in the Asylum, they're either upstairs, downstairs, stuff like that. But you should have all of them already in front of the fireplace, or, excuse me, down in the basement. This is a perk that comes online when it's too late and everybody's panicking and everybody's having to rush and decide, am I going to pick this person up or am I going to electrocute this rat? You should always just choose to electrocute the rat, unless for some reason you have more rats than just the one person can handle. Crawler's more useful just because the person should be able to crawl down to where the medkits are on this map, not somebody going searching. And the rooms are actually large enough that you might not still see this through the walls, because the rooms are just large enough to be beyond like the cursory glance, but still useful so that if you look up, you might see them through the floorboards, or through the different floors. Supply runner, welcome back to S tier supply runner. You should basically have a rat in your hand at all times after you've gathered everything. So basically, what supply runner is letting you do is, if you're using the warden's key strat, you're going to be the first one to that chair, running down there, putting the rat in. You can go to the switch and hit it while everybody else is running down, or you can have it already in the chair and by the time everybody's getting down to the bottom of the stairs, you're already heading back up, and you've got another rat, so that by the time they can actually start electrocuting, because you're going to be back before probably the second rat is electrocuted because of the extra speed the supply runner gives you. And supply runner also helps you get those rats to the warden's room if that's the strategy that you want to. If you don't want to, supply runner's just going to make you the fastest person on the map, period, once you have your goat. Or, I'm sorry, not your goat, your rat. Speedy. Again, Speedy, this is a large map. Speedy is always useful. Extra 7% movement speed, gathering things up, exploring the space, finding keys, opening doors, scouting the areas. Speedy can be an S tier perk because it's a base 7% movement speed increase on a very large map that requires just a lot of movement on the part of the players. Some maps actually don't require that much movement, but the Asylum does. It has, excuse me, it has 4 floors worth of exploration to do. All those floors have multiple rooms. All those floors have multiple twists and turns. Speedy's going to let you get through it quickly. And the thing about the Asylum is that it has a giant circle from the top of from the first floor stairs at the fireplace to the first floor stairs in the dining area. That is one big loop down into the basement where the morgue and all of that is. And if the minions are clogging up one side, they're usually not clogging up the other. Speedy will let you get from one side to the other a little bit faster, which can make all the difference in the Asylum. The Asylum is all about speed and efficiency. Next up, we have Fast Worker, and absolutely, this is like the only time you'll ever see this. Fast Worker goes into the bottom tier, bottom of D list, because Fast Worker says that all of your long interactions are 50% faster, except for revives. It doesn't affect revives. Unfortunately, there are 0 long interactions in the Asylum other than revives, so Fast Worker actually does nothing in this map. Don't ever bring it to the map. You will not have any use for it. Next up, we have Evader. Evader's coming back. Now, here's the thing about Evader when it comes to Asylum. I would actually put it under Speedy and under Supply Runner, because Evader's going to require you to run Azazel. You're going to be 25% faster when you're using Speedy and Azazel's chasing you, but there's such tight corners, and those tight corners are usually clogged up with minions, that you might be faster than Azazel, but unfortunately you're going to be using a lot of that speed, juking around minions and stuff like that. You're going to be using up a lot of what you normally would have to get that big, long distance like you would on the farmhouse. You're not going to be able to really get that in the Asylum. It has plenty of straightaways, but those straightaways are very narrow, and they usually have other minions and stuff like that on them. So while it is S tier, because if you do things right, you can do tons of work with it. It also has the limitations of tight areas that you have to move through. Now you can, loot Azazel all day long if you go into the middle area where the dining area and the floor above it is going. That's fine, but most of the map are tight spaces. So that's why, while usually, it's like some are here or here, it's actually at the bottom of S tier for this map. Next up, we have, oh gosh, what am I thinking of? Repellent. Wait a second, I put Evader right there. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, Evader's a little early in the list, but that's okay. We have Repellent. Minion movement speed decreased by 50% when you're nearby. these guys already move slow. And when I mean slow, I mean glacially, laughably slow. And when you actually have to start dodging them and stuff like that, their speed does not matter. They take up most of the space in the tight spaces. This is only slightly worse than a perk that doesn't do anything. These guys, you can outrun them all day long on every single map. You're never going to have an issue with them. The problem is you can't avoid them once you're in those tight spaces, and you don't get to slow down or anything. The moment they touch you, they grab you. You're standing still. So unfortunately, you know, it's not going to help. Next thing we have up is regeneration. UV regenerates 50% faster, not usable in nightmare mode. Again, it's going to sit here comfortably at the top of, close to the top of A tier, probably at the top of A tier, depends. But normal mode and hard mode, this is a life-saving perk. You can, you get your UV back much faster than everybody else. You can be the person who's designated to, start, beam saving against the Azazel, clearing out minions because your UV is going to come back faster than everybody else's UV. If you're not using one of these two perks, in fact, I would actually put it. I'm gonna change up this. I'm gonna put Evader down in A tier because the tight spaces and stuff like that, and I'm gonna put. Actually, I have to put because this is S tier is relegated for something that's only useful in every single tier. These two are not really all that useful in both tiers. I would say Regenerator is more useful than Evader. Personally, on Asylum, just because on normal and hard difficulty, this can really help out a huge amount. This can still help out in Nightmare, but not as much because of the tight spaces. I would always pick Regenerator over Evader in the Asylum. After that, we have Field Medic, revive players 50% faster. Crawler is fine, but usually by the time it's crawling, you're clearing out things, stuff like that. I would probably put it right here. Crawler is probably better than Field Medic in this one because in the Asylum, it's up to the person who's crawling to get down to where the medkits are anyway. Usually it's a pretty safe area. People try and keep it cleared out and stuff like that. You have to wait until Azazel pass away from it anyway, and by the time that happens, you don't need you don't need 50% extra speed to pick someone up. You just need to pick them up. Beyond that, we have fully charged. UV charge is not consumed for 20 seconds after using a battery. Now, I would actually put this one in A tier or B tier. It could go in either. Because you know what? I'm gonna put it in B tier, top of B tier, mostly because while it can be useful in every single mode, it again has the caveats that you have to have a battery. You have to equip the battery to get the effect. But that's the only time you get the effect. Once again, this is something I wish they would change the wording on. It's not whenever you use the battery, it's whenever you equip the battery. I've had people very confused sometimes. They're like, oh, I equipped my battery a while ago, but I started to use it and my UV just started going down and I don't know why. I have this perk on and it's still going down. It's because once you equip the battery, that's when you get your 20 seconds, not whenever you start to use your battery. Otherwise, it'd be God tier perk, never take anything else other than this perk. But, unfortunately, it sits very comfortably in B tier. Having somebody with that on is okay, especially if, you're just going to decide to go for a 4-3-3 strategy, so that that person with the battery always has it ready to rock it. They'll pull the lever and do everything else. They're just waiting for Azazel to come down. That's a good defensive measure. It's not a bad thing to do at all. It's not a bad strategy either. So it's very, very, very comfortable and very, very useful in nightmare modes and hard modes. Not so much in normal. I mean, it's still useful in normal, but not as useful as in the harder difficulties. But that's you know, where it draws its strength, the harder the harder difficulty on, the more useful this perk becomes. But it's still not as useful as being able to get where you need to get faster. Your UV regenerating faster, because again, somebody has to be holding onto that battery instead of a goat, or I'm sorry, instead of a rat. I always want to say goat. But moving on from fully charged, we have supercharged, 20% movement speed for 20 seconds after using a battery. Welcome back to the D tier. This perk just does not do enough for what it does. If this perk, and I don't think it would be overpowered even to say that, even if they said once you stun something, stun Azazel or banish a minion, you have 20% movement speed for 10 seconds, that would make this perk B tier. But as it is, 20% movement speed after equipping your battery, not really that useful. You're wanting to stun if you equip the battery, not run. So, and 20% speed is not enough to get away from Azazel. The Azazel will catch up. I guess basically what they're saying is you can get a bigger head start and then stun and then still have, time to run away and then stun again. It's basically the same thing as as fully charged, just instead of having more battery life, you just have more speed to use that battery life. But this one could actually be completely reworked and be a much better perk than it is now. But unfortunately, as it is now, it sits in the D tier for Asylum. After Supercharge, we have Trapper. Last ritual item becomes highlighted. Now, this can actually be extremely, extremely useful in the Asylum. The Asylum is not a maze of rooms, but it can feel like a maze of rooms. You can feel like you've checked every single room. And if you're just going for a shotgun play, a speed run, and you want to find where that last goat, or I'm sorry, I said goat again. I meant to say rat. But if you want to find where that last rat is, yes, this can be an extremely useful perk sometimes. In fact, I'm going to say sometimes, just like this. It's useful, but you shouldn't ever need it if you want a guaranteed win. You're never really going to use this perk, but if you're going for a speed run, this perk can actually come in really handy if you guys are just trying to go as fast as possible. So there is that. Next is Immune. Movement speed decreased by 70% when slowed by a minion. Welcome back to the trash tier. In fact, I'm going to put it under this. I'm going to put it under a perk that has no effect, because this perk also has no effect, but it has no effect twice. So it's even worse. It has no effect in the Asylum because the minions do not slow you down. They just stop you. So 70% less of 0 is still 0. You're not going anywhere if the minions touch you, so this perk, don't equip this perk. Just period, end of story. After that, we have Team Leader. Team Leader can actually be really useful in this for revives. There are no other long interactions in this map, but revives are very common in this map because of the layout of the map, the way Azazel paths. When people are revived, usually there's other people around them, because it's usually a group effort to get to one point and the other in the late game. Having a leader there to help somebody be picked up while you're defending with a flashlight and everything like that, that is a good perk to have. It's useful in every single thing, especially if Team Leader is the person who's designated to have the battery. Team Leader can, fend off with UV while somebody else gets picked up at twice the speed. So Team Leader is bottom of A tier for the Asylum, in my opinion. Last but not least, we have Under Pressure. Long interacts are 150% faster when you are the last player alive. Co-op only. You can't do it in Nightmare. I wish to God you could, but you can't use this in Nightmare. Who's ready for a repeat of literally everything else we've said? It's probably C tier or top of D tier. Unfortunately, the only thing that is a long interact in the Asylum are revives. And yes, you can revive somebody at 150% speed. That is amazing, but it requires you to be the last person alive, which means Azazel is coming for you. And since there's only one spot that's really safe from Azazel well, technically there's two, but neither of them are safe to resurrect from. So you kind of have to time this resurrection. It's not as bad as in the farmhouse, because sometimes Azazel will path away if you turn off your flashlight and the person's just sitting there right beside the medkit, beside the safety area. You can hop down, get them up lickety-split, and maybe you can recover the game. But it's another thing. It's just one of those perks that you should never have to use because you should be planning ahead accordingly. So, unfortunately, that's where Under Pressure goes. But this right here is the tier list. If you're planning on spending a lot of time in the Asylum, these right here, Supply Runner, Speedy, absolutely top tier perks. They're going to help you in every single level of the Asylum. After that, Regeneration is going to help you from normal to hard mode. Evader, if you get somebody really, really, really good, it's going to be an awesome, awesome perk for you. Team Leader is also going to be an awesome perk for you if you guys stick together as a group. These are the perks I would really invest in first. These perks are coming in situationally, but still good. These perks I would just start not even touching. Remember, you have 4 people, and there are 7 perks right here that I'd recommend taking before anything down here. And these 4 I would definitely recommend before any of those others. But that's going to be our perk tier list for Devour in the Asylum. I hope it was all informative. If you have different opinions on which perks go where, let me know down in the comments. Thank you all for watching, and as always, stay positive.